All right, so the first thing, there's three things that I want to move into. First, I want to go through and test the sell item functionality a little bit because we didn't really, we'll do it like two or three times. And then in the process of testing this, we are going to see why we want to break the scripts up. And so we're going to move towards that. Because as we talked about, every time when you're dealing with managed code and stuff like that, you get into the scenario where the more functionality you add to your script, the more hoops that people have to jump through in order to be able to enable it. So just to test the sell item functionality, we have to go into the karma screen and spend and remove a point. We don't have to confirm it. And then we have to talk to this guy. And then we have to buy something. And then we have to sell something to force these instructions into memory. It's just not the way. It's just not the way you want to do it. So we have this. So now we can link it to the game. Let's enable the script. It's definitely taking a while, which is another reason why you want to break it up. So let's buy something, and we should have 50,000 karma or 50,000 money. I'm not going to bother going to the PDA because we're going to see our money value in just a second. It's right there. So let's just sell something. We should have 25, or no, we should have 50 because I changed it in the script here. Instead of we were pushing 25,000 in the previous video, and I had messed around a little bit after the video, and I just wanted to. What I had done is essentially just the only thing that I changed was now we push 50,000 into money, whether you buy or sell something. All right, so it is working. So let's close the game. Let's disable the script first. And another thing to note here, and we'll test it as well, is don't just test functionality when you enable it. Disable the script, and I have been lacking in this regard. Um, because sure everything's working up here in the enable section, but if you're pushing the wrong stuff down here in the disable section, then you'll more than likely screw the game up. It's just as easy to screw it up in the disable section as it is in the enable section. So that seems to be functioning normally. So we will go here and we will buy something. And we should have 49,600. I'll take a look, sir. We do. Let's sell it. 349.9. We have it. All right. Everything seems to be in order. Let's close that. Refresh the desktop. Wait for it to synchronize. It is synchronizing with the cloud. Yep. So we'll do this. This is the last time we're going to test this. And you can, again, it should be readily apparent why this sucks, is what I would say. Let's say we wanted to, as what we're going to do in the future is move into like some God mode and some infinite ammo and movement points, action points, things like that. So can you imagine that you have a script in this game, that has like 5 features, and someone is like, well, okay, so I just want God mode, and I want to be invincible in a fight, and you're like, okay, great, I can do that for you, but you have to spend some karma and you have to buy something and sell something, and they're just going to be like, well, all I want to do is be invincible, and you're like, yeah, but manage code, they're going to be like, but nothing, I'm not messing around, you suck. So thinking of this, putting this in the context of an end user, um, they want as little hoops to jump through as possible. That is certainly not specific to Cheat Engine. If you do any sort of interface work, then God bless you, because I have a real hard time dealing with users sometimes. I mean, I obviously, like, I'm recording 105 videos and whatnot, so I have no problem doing this stuff. But there's just, I don't know. It's, again, if you work in like user interface design and stuff like that, then you know what I mean, is what I would say. All right, so we've reattached the process. Let's enable the script. It enables. Let's test the karma. Plus 100. minus 100, hit exit, doesn't matter. $50,000, please. Thanks, sir. 50,000, please. Thank you. So, it's worth mentioning that I'm just making the value 50,000 up. If there's some item in the game that costs more than 50,000, then you're going to have to disable the script and go find some money, or you can just go into the script and change this value right here to something higher, 100,000 or something like that. So let's. Another thing I want to sort of highlight here is revert in the spend karma screen. So, our script's enabled and we're hitting plus and we're hitting minus and we're getting 100 karma, and that's great. But if we came into the menu with 609, and if you hit revert, it goes back to, or if we came in with 600, if you hit revert, it goes back to 600. Well, does that mean the script is bugged? It does not. What that means is basically, and this is not specific to this game, this is in general how this stuff works. When you click the spend karma here and it actually brings you into the screen, it's just going to say how much karma do you have right now. It's going to stuff it in some address, some memory, and then the way that the game implements revert functionality is when you click revert, it's just going to go grab that value and stuff it back in. We didn't bother messing around with that with our script, and for good reason, because it doesn't matter. But you can see, again, plus minus, you hit revert. 600 is what you came into the menu with. So if you actually confirm it and then you go back into the screen with 100 and then you hit revert, now you have 100 because that's what you came in with. So that is worth mentioning. All right, so let's disable the script. Let's close the game. And let's move in the direction of breaking this stuff out. So how are we going to do this? The way that I do it is I just copy it and I just paste it. So now I have two scripts that have exactly the same content in them. We are going to say script karma, control enter, script Nguyen. So this first script right here is going to be for karma, so we don't need any of the money stuff. So we're just going to tear that out. Any buy or sell item. That right there. And then we don't need this. And then we don't need that. Just do a once over here. It's karma in game chunk 0, karma in game 4, 4, 4, and 4. And then 4 entries, 4 process, 4 injection, and then 4 disable, and then 4 unregisters and a dealloc. Let's hit OK and go over the money script. Now we don't need anything related to karma, so we're going to highlight this stuff, and then we're going to go. We can get rid of this comment because there's nothing related to karma and that sort of nonsense in the scripts. So we'll get rid of that. We'll get rid of that. Get rid of that. So on and so forth. And these as well. And we can get rid of the unregisters. So let's again do a once over, buy and sell. There's 2, and then there's 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. Then we have 2, 2, and then the 2 right there, and then get rid of that. All right. So it is worth noting. Let's bring up our 2 scripts. It is worth noting that we are allocating memory in both scripts with alloc. We are assigning some content with that memory label or that memory address, more specifically, in our scripts, and then we are deallocating it down here. They have the same name. Does it really matter? Yes and no. Cheat Engine will probably has some specific. We talked about scope and locality of reference and things like that. Cheat Engine internally probably limits the name of the memory to the script that it is declared in. So you might be able to get away with using chunk 0 or whatever name you want, reusing it in multiple scripts, but we do not want to do that, or at least I don't like to. I just don't do that. It's not that I don't like it, I just don't do it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to. This is the second script in our address list, so we're just going to rename this chunk 1. And we're going to name this chunk 1, and we are going to name this chunk 1. So now we are allocating 4K memory in each script. One is called chunk 0, the other is called chunk 1. So it's worth mentioning that there's sort of a variant of alloc, which is global alloc. So you could do that. And what global alloc does is basically it's the same as using register symbol with your allocated memory name, and then if you try and global alloc the same memory twice, Cheat Engine just won't do it, and it'll just return the first address of the allocated memory um, whenever subsequent requests are made. We don't want to do that here, because what will happen is you will end up messing around and say, okay, so I want to do a global alloc and I want to allocate 4K, and then I want to split that memory up 2K for each script, and so then you may get into some scenario where you're doing, you would do something like global alloc, so now, again, these names will Cheat Engine will register the chunk 0 name across the scripts, and then then you couldn't just do this, because chunk 0 is really just some memory, and if you're not differentiating between the two, you're going to wind up clobbering the memory, and again, you could get into a scenario where you're splitting it up and say, okay, well, I'm allocating 4K for all my scripts, and I want to give each one, there's only two, so I want to give each one 4K divided by however many scripts I have. Why even bother with that? I don't. So just do this. Global alloc makes sense for variables and flags and things that you want to use to coordinate actions across multiple scripts, but it in my opinion, it does not make sense when you are allocating memory for your actual code to live in, which is essentially what you're doing with all this. It lives in this memory chunk. So again, if you want to mess around with global alloc, you can certainly do that on your own time. But I do want to at least acknowledge that it exists and that there is some subtle difference between it. And you could probably read, um, what do we got? Auto assembler help is global alloc here. Global alloc's right here. Global alloc will allocate a certain amount of memory and registers the specified name. Using global alloc in other scripts will then not allocate the memory again, but reuse the already existing memory, or allocate it anyhow if found it was not allocated yet. So you, again, what that allows you to do is sort of synchronize variables and flags and just memory across multiple scripts. But when you're talking about, like, I want memory for my code to actually live in, I just don't think that global alloc makes a whole lot of sense. Now, maybe I'm just, the famous thing, you're doing it wrong. It's possible, but it also just keeps it simpler this way, which we are interested in doing for this series. So again, I'm acknowledging that global alloc exists and that it makes sense. In my opinion, it makes sense in certain limited context. And so that's all I'm going to say about that. And maybe we will use it for, coordinating script activity later on in the series. I don't really know. But let's hit OK. Let's hit OK. And let's just open them back up and let's double check it. So we have that. We're allocating that chunk 0, and deallocating down there. We've taken out all the money stuff, and then we have our AOB scans, alloc, chunk 1, doing that, and we've taken out all the karma stuff, 50,000, 50,000, hit OK. All right, so let's open up the game now. We'll go to continue. So what we no longer are bound to is, if we just want to mess around with karma, we no longer have to go buy and sell an item, because if one AOB scan in a script fails, then the whole script will not enable. So, now we could, if we put the table out there for people to use and they're just like, well, all I want is karma, then that's great. You just tell them to go here and go here and hit plus, hit spend, or hit plus, hit minus. And now you can enable the karma script. If I'm not an idiot, we actually attach it to the right one. So do that. Now you could just enable the karma script. It runs, it does its AOB. We, again, the buy, sell item stuff, it's in a whole nother script. So now you hit plus, you hit minus, you have 100. Much easier for an end user. Well, they suddenly decide, I want money. That's fine too. So just go here, buy something, sell something. I'll talk about that 1 second once we've done making this point. So there you go, 99,811. We will enable our money script. Probably takes a little while. It's kind of a long byte string. Not too bad. Do that. So now we go in here. Say, I'll take a look. Let's buy something. Should have 50,000. I'll take another look. We have 50,000. Let's sell something. We should still have 50,000. We do. And the scripts are not overwriting each other, and everything is fine because we can open up the spend karma screen and do this and do that and confirm it, and the game does not crash. So our scripts play nice together. They are functional, and they exist in separate spaces so that they can mess around with their own memory in whatever way they want. So what I would say at this point as well is that the way that we have built this out so far is that we have basically found the value we want to modify, and then we go to find out what writes to this address, and then we go in and we change the value, and then we find the instruction that actually modifies it, and then that's what basically we're injecting on, and that's sort of the basic philosophy that we have followed. It is worth acknowledging that that is certainly not the only way to do it. It is a simple I find it is a simple but incredibly effective way to handle that sort of thing. But however, it does impose the limitation that you have to actually use you have to force that stuff into memory by using it because of managed code and stuff like that. You may be asking yourself, or you may have asked yourself up to this point, basically, I can see that my karma is 100 right here. So we'll walk through it. And we're going to save this table. And we're going to close cheat engine because it doesn't matter. We're just going to make this point. So fresh copy of the game. Nothing is in memory. We haven't hit plus for our karma. We haven't bought or sold anything. So that stuff's not in memory yet. So let's go to continue. So we're not, I don't know, we'll move over here so we can actually see the character. So let's just open up the PDA. I can see my karma and I can see my money. How can the game display the karma or the money without the instructions that we have forced into memory? Because there are many ways that the game interacts with the karma values. Sometimes it accesses them for reads, and sometimes it accesses them for writes. And basically, the sort of technical delineation between that stuff is that when you open up Cheat Engine, you say find out what writes to this value, you're only going to get back instructions that write to that value, that modify that value, such as when you click plus or minus in the spend karma screen. But in order to display it right here, the actual memory location for your karma has to be in memory, otherwise it wouldn't be able to read from it and get the value for displaying in an interface. And the same goes for money. And I purposely not talked about this up to now because it's a technical distinction that really it is necessary. It will become more and more relevant as we do more and more advanced things. But as far as building a framework and some groundwork and getting up to this point, it was not necessary for us to make this distinction. So let's see if we can show or prove this at all. All right, let's attach to the game. So how are we going to make this point? What is our karma? It is 609. So we will search for 609. Now we have to actually modify our karma, which we will do here, and we will say 605. Close it. So we get one value. Let's change it to 100, just to make sure that we have it. We open it back up, we have 100. So this is the karma value. Instead of saying find out what writes, let's say find out what accesses to this address. So you're not seeing anything pop up in this window yet, but let's go into the game a little bit. Let's waste some time. We'll click on this. You get one hit, but we haven't actually done anything. All we did was bring up a different menu. So let's just close the PDA. Let's go back. Still one. We open it up. You get three totally different memory locations, but the same instruction, same byte pattern, I might also point out. And then we'll do that. You get three more. This one increments up to a count of 2. Let's go to spend karma right here. Now you got 5, and you have some different one down here. we'll hit plus, we'll hit minus. Now you got a bunch more, and so I like to use find out what writes to this address, even though it imposes the limitation of you having to go in and hit plus or like modify the value in some game mechanic way or in some gameplay way, because it just weeds out a lot of these interface addresses. However, as we start to move forward, not in the next video, but certainly as we do more of this stuff and whatnot, you will find that you can derive some tangible benefit from all these interface routines and whatnot for grabbing the value and displaying it, in this little graphical widget or whatever you want to say, and then this widget, and then same goes for the money. We're just talking about the karma. um, I mean, again, you'd have to sort of, and unless you understand what's really going on under the hood, which is what we have been building towards and whatnot up to this point, or pretty much the whole series, and will continue to do so. Seeing all these extra results is not going to do you any favors. It's just going to confuse you. And so now, what you wind up doing is sort of saying, well, this is an interface, and then how can you dig out the rights? How do I know what's actually modifying it? Well, there's a move. Well, no, because there's, how many are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then so there's 9 moves. Not every one of those is modifying the value, as evidenced by the fact that you could say find out what writes to this address, and then open the menu and close the menu and reopen the menu and do this and do that, and there is nothing over here in the rights window. And then if you hit plus and minus, uh, I don't know. We're not getting anything, but why is that? I don't know. Maybe there's some weird clobbering or something going on. It's probably because multiple breakpoints or something like that. But anyway, you could still find out which one is doing it by just hitting plus and minus, and then coming out here and saying, well, these are incrementing and decrementing. But you can see that there's 4 instructions right here, and their count seems to be going up when you click plus minus. That goes to 5. So 4, 3, 3, 2, 3. 4, 3, 3, 2, 3, and then 1 down there. All right. So these 4 seem to be changing. So two of these instructions, as because we know sort of how this stuff is working behind the scenes. 2 of these is going to be for increasing and decreasing the actual value, and then 2 of these are probably related to the interface or something like that. So again, I want to at least acknowledge that find out what accesses this address does exist, and it has a good utilitarian purpose, and we will get to that. But in brief, what I would say, right, I mean, what is going on is just like apparently if you just sit here at the menu, it just, I don't know. I want to acknowledge that find out what accesses this address does exist, and it has a purpose in that if you want to remove the limitation of having the user come in and have to click plus and minus, what you can do is you can find out what accesses this address to sort of inject upon some interface routines, and you will be able to grab the actual value of the player's karma through the interface routine, store it in some variable, and then reference it in your script. And we will probably do that, but again, for the initial purposes of building this out, it was unnecessary, in my opinion, for us to bring that level of complexity until it made sense to do so. So we will continue to find out what writes to this address, but at some point we will probably start using accesses this address as well. But I do want to at least acknowledge that it is out there and it does have a purpose, and that the basic distinction between find out what accesses and find out what writes is for reading the value of a memory location and writing the value of a memory location. That is the distinction. When you just want to display the karma for the player in an interface menu, you don't have to change that value at all. You just say, give me the address and read the value. Just like when we were messing around with Python and stuff like that, we were just saying, hey, Python, tell me what the value of X is, and it would come back and say 5 or 10 or whatever. It's just reading that value. And then whenever we did an assignment statement or something like X equals 5, then it would actually go to that location and change that value. And that is the functional philosophical difference between accesses this address and writes to this address. And when you use accesses this address, you're going to basically have to deal with all the different interface routines that are going on in a game to grab a value, display a value, and there's never going to be just one. There's going to be you know, as we just saw, we only messed with it for a minute, but there was like 10 or 11 down here. Most of those we will probably never care about. So if you want to see absolutely everything that is going on with a variable, whether it's read or write, you could use this. But if you just want to find out what is modifying the value, then you use write. So with that, we will, I don't know, clear this out. We'll delete this and just sort of clean it up a little bit, and then we will resave it. And then the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to show how to do some flags and whatnot to basically we will be able to enable and disable the functionality of our script while the script is still activated by giving the user something down here to either change the value of or just click activate and deactivate. So in order to do that, we are going to have to actually sit down and talk about assembly and more basically we're going to have to talk about assembly commands, which is something that we have to do as we move forward anyway. So we might as well start now.